I'd like to talk to you all just for a quick second and not in a preachy way and not like I have this whole life figured out, but I just want to sit here with you and be straightforward and honest. There's this kind of lost feeling that people, they just don't really talk about much. And it's not really like a dramatic, everything is falling apart kind, but I mean just the quiet kind. It's like you wake up and you brush your teeth, you go to work, you answer texts on your phone, and you show up for people. But somewhere in the middle of it all, you kind of think to yourself, like, how did I even get here? Like nothing is exploding and life isn't a disaster, but it just doesn't feel properly aligned anymore. And maybe you switch careers and now you're just kind of doing this whole second guessing thing to yourself. And maybe you even stayed in the same job and now you just feel stuck, or maybe you had a relationship that recently ended, or maybe it didn't end, but it shifted and now it just feels much different. And maybe you thought by this age that you'd just simply be somewhere else in life. And there's no huge crisis per se, but just kind of this brain fog. And this fog, it kind of messes you up and you start asking questions in your head like, where am I going? And why doesn't anything just feel clear, right? Like a clear path. Or maybe did I take the wrong turn? And, why am I not hearing from God? Did he go quiet? And if that's where you are, I just want you to take a breath because I want to walk through a few verses with you, and not to force meaning or rush answers or anything, but rather just to hold on to something steady while everything that you're going through feels unsteady. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 through 6. And you've heard this one before. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. You guys have all heard that, right? I know it is familiar. And I think sometimes when we hear something too often, it kind of loses its weight and its power. But just slow down on that line for a second. Like, lean not on your own understanding. So if you're an overthinker, this really hits because if you replay conversations at night or try to map out every possible outcome, that line is really for you. Like you've tried to figure this season out that you're in and you've analyzed it and you've prayed about it and you still don't see the whole picture here. Truth doesn't erase the questions, but it steadies you while you carry them. And then it says this: He will make your paths straight. And straight, my friends, it does not mean easy. It doesn't. But it means purposeful. Like you're not zigzagging through life by accident. And even the detours, they're doing something inside you. So you see moments, but God sees this movement, right? So when you feel alone in the confusion, remember Psalm 139, 7 through 10. And feeling lost, it can feel isolating. Like you look around and everyone just feels confident and just sure and everything. But meanwhile, you're sitting there struggling and just questioning everything. And Psalm 139 basically says, like, there's nowhere you can go where God's presence isn't, right? His presence isn't, not in the highs or in the lows or in the doubt and not in the numbness, even, right? Like, you don't drift out of God's awareness. And I think sometimes we assume that confusion means we messed up. Like, it's almost like it's some kind of punishment. But this passage pushes back on that. It really does. Like you're fully seen, even in this kind of fog you're going through, and being seen matters more than like having everything figured out, right? So when you're waiting and it feels endless, remember Isaiah 40:31, because waiting is hard. You can handle action and you can handle grind and you can handle work, but waiting stretches you in a really different way. But listen to this. But those whose hope in the Lord will renew their strength. Hope isn't pretending everything is fine, right? But it's choosing to believe something is happening under the surface. And this verse here, it talks about soaring, it talks about running, it talks about walking. Like Not everyone is soaring right now. Some days you're just kind of walking. They might be slow steps or tired steps, but you're walking. And you know what? Walking still counts. So if this season that you're in feels small and not meaningless, growth often happens underground before anything shows up above ground. And strength comes back. It does. It's just kind of layer by layer, right? So when your plans, when they all fall apart, remember Jeremiah 29:11, that verse that says, "For I know the plans I have for you," right? It was spoken to people in exile. Like they lost their normal, they lost their comfort, they lost their home. And God said, guess what he said? He said, "I know." And there's something comforting about that you don't know how this ends, but he does. He knows how it ends. So when plans collapse and it feels personal and like you failed and like maybe you missed your chance, but you need to understand that your timeline, it's not the final word, but rather it's those in between seasons that are uncomfortable. And you're not who you used to be, but you're also not fully who you're becoming either, if that makes sense. But still, those in between places, they really shape you and they build patience and they build clarity on what really matters and they clarify that and it strips away what doesn't. And the process teaches more than the arrival of that ever will. So when you only need the next step, look at Psalm 119. It says this: "Your word is a lamp to my feet." And then it goes on. And notice it says lamp, doesn't say floodlight, right? So we want the whole 5-year plan laid out, but instead we get enough light for just the next few steps that we're going through. And although that can feel really frustrating, and I know you want guarantees and you want clarity, but instead you get today and the next wise decision and just that next honest prayer, right? And guidance, it unfolds as you move. So if you wait for total clarity before stepping forward, you'll stay stuck. And the light, it grows. It grows as you walk. So when you feel weak, remember 2 Corinthians 12:9. It says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." And feeling lost exposes your limits. Like you realize you don't have as much control as you thought. And you know what? It's uncomfortable, but we need to remember that weakness isn't rejection. It's dependence. God's strength shows up where yours runs thin. And you don't need kind of like this polished confidence and you don't need this flawless faith, but you need grace. And grace meets you where you are, not where you think you should be. So when fear starts writing the story, let's look at Joshua 1:9. Fear loves to fill in the blanks. And if you don't know what's next, fear in your mind, guess what? It'll make something up. But remember this: be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And guess what? That was said during a major transition: new leadership, new territory. And God, He never promised zero obstacles, but He did promise this: He promised His presence. And courage grows from knowing that you're not walking alone. So when you start questioning your worth, let's read Romans 8:28. "And we know that in all things God works for the good." And it goes on. All things includes the confusing seasons, the stalled seasons, and just those disappointing ones that you probably wouldn't have picked, right? So you need to remember, like, nothing is wasted. Not the job that didn't last, not the relationship that ended, and not the delay that just simply frustrates you. You see, you might see isolated moments, but God, He sees the full story. So let's bring this back. So here you are, waking up and feeling unsure. But feeling lost isn't the same as being abandoned, my friend. And most of the time, it's that space in between the chapters. Like, God isn't scrambling to fix your life, and He's not surprised by the questions and prayers that you have. He's steady, even when your emotions aren't. And if your only prayer right now is like, "God, I don't understand," remember that that's enough. You don't need polished words, and I've said that countless times. So go back to these verses, read them slowly, sit with them, and meditate on them. Listen, you're not behind, you're not forgotten, you're not wandering without direction. You're being shaped, you're being guided, one steady step at a time. Blessings, my friends. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I just wanted to share this with y'all this evening. And we'll see you on the next video. Love y'all. Bye.